You play any sports in college? Or
No,
you play any sports in high school?
no.
No.
I don't know who your audience on this is going to be, but let's assume a lot of them are people that are in the body of Christ. They can identify this. Remember, I'm over twice your age.
Yeah.
So I go back when, and some churches are still this way, and I'm not knocking it, but there was a lot. I know an older sister one time, I was chatting with her, and she told me her preacher preached against riding a bicycle.
What?
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know if it's just girls or boys and girls shouldn't ride a bicycle.
What was the logic on that?
I could only guess at it since I didn't hear him say it, but that's what she told me. So the church has been kind of stricter on young people in the past than it was now. So they really kind of de-emphasized too many extracurriculars at your school, particularly sports. Now, I will say there is a degree of wisdom in some of this. So, like in high school, I was part of the chess team. Okay, woo, But some activities in your school, like high school, that are team oriented, since you're a student, a young person, you can get really involved in the success of the team and the camaraderie of your teammates. Okay, which is great to have friends, but the bulk of them will probably not, especially today, be church-going fellas and girls. So they may want to pull you in directions you shouldn't go. And it's hard to resist when you've got close peers, teammates.
Of course. Yeah.
Okay? I wasn't too threatened about what was going to happen to me in the chess club. Nobody's going to talk me into going drinking with them or something like that. Okay? You see the difference. Especially team sports. Am I saying I'm against team sports? No, I'm not against them. But I do recognize the risks that come because you don't know if your teenager has got a good head on their shoulders or they tend to be on the reckless side. I was somewhere in between. So it might have been good that I didn't get involved in team sports. So what was it? What helped during those days? I was part of the band at church. The band was sort of like, when I started in the band, we must have had 12, 15 young people in it. Okay, all roughly the same age. And it became the way for us to bond and be closer together and do more things as that kind of group. A group that hopefully will not take you in the direction that maybe out in the high school, public school system would. I was in a public school.
I got you.
So, that's why I was never in sports. I played them. When I grew up, it was during the time when kids in the neighborhood got together and played sports together. We had enough neighborhood kids. We played baseball. We played football in the fall. Basketball when we could find a court somewhere. So we did play sports as kids, just not organized sports. It seems to be a different world. I could drive through neighborhoods today and I rarely hear kids. Sometimes you see 6 or 7 kids at a basketball goal in somebody's driveway, and that's good, okay? But I don't know if there's even open fields available. We had backyards. All of our friends were like all next door to each other, and nobody had fences up. So we had a football field worth of yards. The only risk was if you ran into the tree in somebody's yard, Otherwise, you could play football. And so that's the story of my athletic career.
How strict was it? Was it 100% no?
It's going to depend on the parent. Okay, like you weren't supposed to go to movies. Well, you don't go to movies. And look, I realized that the movie houses of the 20s and 30s and 40s were different. You could go and put a nickel in and stay all day long, just movie after movie. You and your girlfriend up in the back corner, and the ushers aren't around, and you're going to cause trouble for yourselves. That could happen then.
Exactly.
And that's what the preachers remembered, so that's why they're preaching again in the 60s and 70s.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, by then, tickets were getting to be a little expensive. And, if you had to look up the history on Louisville, the cinema theaters on Bardstown Road, they did an article in the paper about this recently, looking back. They were the big movie house to go to. They had like 8 different screens, and they could hold 500 or more people in a room or whatever. Is a big deal. And you're paying too much for a ticket to mess around in back corners or whatever. You're there to watch it. Okay, so you knew it was different. It's just your parents might not know that it's different. So it's a question of whether your parents were a little lenient or were not. I mean, I was shocked one time when my dad, I've got a younger brother, Doug, you know him. Mm-hmm. And we're only 14 months apart. And Mom talks my dad into taking us to the drive-in just down the street from our house. Because they were showing some innocent movies. I remember there were 2 movies. One was The Shakiest Gun in the West with Don Knotts. You can't get more G-rated than that. So we went down there, put the speaker in the window, got the popcorn, the whole thing. Had a fun time. That didn't persuade us to go to other movies. I mean, Mom and Dad were trying to find ways to find a middle ground that worked. And then later, as we got to be high schoolers, we just, you have a job, you make your own money, you go off, you don't tell Mom and Dad where you're going. I pity my parents. Nowadays, I can know where my daughter is. I'm not trying to hover over her, but if I'm concerned, I can find out where she's at. I can contact her on a cell phone, all that sort of stuff. Not when I was her age, or as I was married when I was 23. So prior to 23, Mom just had to pray a lot that I'm not going to get into an accident or get shot at or whatever it was. And yes, on more than one occasion, I just ran out of gas on the road. Not paying any attention, got just a few bucks in my pocket. Every once in a while I get lucky and I might coast into the gas station, before the car stops. And a few times I had to call Dad and him bring out a container of gas to get gassed up. But it's easier. I don't have to feel as worried. If you're a parent and your teenage son, see you later, 5 p.m, doesn't show up to midnight, you're wondering what's going on. I know I didn't always make wise choices. I did make terrible choices. I never robbed anybody. I didn't get into too bad a situation. But I would just hang out with friends. Yes, I had friends in high school. And no, they weren't godly friends. They weren't terrible folks, but I should have been hanging around other people, probably.
I got you.
Yeah, I'm not an angel in my youth.
Nobody is.
No, nobody is. That's true. And there are things about my youth I would tell nobody.
That is true.
And because it's always hard to put it in perspective.
Yeah.
And they can't understand it, so naturally they're thinking the worst about whatever you're describing. So.
Mm-hmm. And that thing is like they weren't there.
Right.
So they don't know what was going through your head.
And they never went through that experience as their own kids.
Exactly.
Grow up in Depression era, you're just glad there's food on the table.
Something in my lifetime I haven't had to worry about.
Right.
In our generation.
Me neither.